Okay, so this is going to be just a quick one um, today, but the general idea is looking at where we are still within this little squeeze on the underside. I think in terms of the Wyckoff structure, there's clearly a retest of the 42-ish, 43 level, which is the low of the schematic itself. I think we're still sitting in what looks to be range bound, which is quite obvious when you see it like this. I think the ultimate play was from the move down, so the buyer's climax, the UT, and obviously the UTAD, an A, a B, and a C move. I think at the moment this particular range is, yeah, just kind of flat really. So there's no real action there. There's lots of conversation on social media around why and what and who's doing what and where the key levels are. This is something that obviously I called back in March, and I still feel it's playing out. So I think the 30k level was only what I had as the kind of final swing, but obviously that was obviously it happened a lot faster than I'd anticipated. So I think the key levels have actually been tagged. Everything makes still a lot of sense. I think we probably see some kind of W forming in here again, and obviously after that we could be looking at another dip down. So I still think for me it's pretty much sideways with a little bit of bearish sentiment. I think if I flip over to the COT information, so let's get out of this and into the COT side. I think in terms of the current levels, this still shows pretty much bearish sentiment. We're obviously looking leverage funds, still bearish sentiment, and therefore my bias is still pretty much bearish as a whole. There was a couple of um, kind of options and potential outcomes. I think I can quickly rule these out if I'm honest. I think for me, looking at this one, there was something that I looked at smaller time frame. So I'm going to go away from the candles, bars, and come up to candles. And the general idea was that looking at this particular move on, I think, an hour time frame, there was some potential for. It's obviously buffering still. Some potential for a move that could be comparable to this. And what I was looking for earlier on this morning was to see whether or not we get a touch of the outer channel and then obviously a rise back to the Z. That still doesn't give me the 42-43 region for the Wyckoff test, which means ultimately this could easily be another failed test as a whole, marked up now as a corrective move rather than the impulsive move. You could justify this as a 3 given that we are on a smaller time frame. It does fit the 1618 pattern. It does fit potential for a 2618 at the top. So there is potential for that. But I think even if we assume that this is bullish, which is what I first looked at with the move up and this impulsive candle giving us a little bit of insight, you'd still be looking only at a 0 at this level. You'd be looking at a 1 move up, which would give us 1 at the 5, and then obviously back 50% or more for the 2. So I think one way or the other, we're still looking likely that before we get any real impulsive move on the bigger time frame, that the smaller patterns are actually going to play themselves out fractally to where we're seeing, even at the best case scenario, we're seeing a 1 and a 2 pullback. Worst case scenario, it obviously drops again. And I think ultimately, maybe targeting the 30, 31, maybe just below for a liquidity grab kind of makes a bit of sense still. So again, pretty much nothing's really changed in the updates that we've been given. Nothing's really changed in my overall sentiment. I'm liking putting a few different options and scenarios in terms of the chart. I looked at a couple of key levels back a couple of days ago. I think we're on the 6th, where obviously we were talking about the potential moves from drop down low back up to what we would regard as the value area. We've had a few speed bumps obviously along the way, and I think only now look we'd actually get into value area kind of center really. So I think that there's a sloping channel value area, and if you look at the stochastic potential plays at the moment, I think on the smaller time frame we're probably now reaching quite an interesting level in terms of the stochastic coupled with the price or the price action as we currently stand. So I think for me it's kind of done, yeah, pretty much kind of according to plan at the moment. It's range bound. This will look very impulsive for a lot of retail traders, but I think for me it's still pretty much sideways. And if you zoom out to obviously bigger time frame, it looks the same as it's done for the last 2 to 3 weeks, and therefore nothing really interesting, nothing really fascinating. I'm just going to stay as it is and wait for the next bit of confirmation. So yeah, that's obviously today's stream, and we'll obviously come back and get another stream out tomorrow at some point.